guys, welcome or welcome back. Thank you so much for being here. It's so greatly appreciated. It truly, truly is. Before I get started, let me give you my usual disclaimer. This video is for educational purposes only. Please do not take what I say as fact. Please always do your own research and come to your own conclusions. Next, if you have not liked, subscribed, or commented yet, please consider doing so because it really helps me out and I really, really appreciate it. So, Vang Vieng is located in the heart of Laos in Southeast Asia, and it is said to be a backpacker's dream destination. The small town has breathtaking landscapes, stunning mountains, rice fields, and scenic views. Its laid-back atmosphere, beautiful sunsets, stunning evening views, and wide range of adventure activities is what attracts most visitors. A popular place for most tourists to stay is called Nana Backpacker Hostel. The hostel is located in Vang Vieng's city center. There's a shared kitchen that allows you to cook anything you want, free Wi-Fi, bars, restaurants, pools, and a fitness center. Hostel employees will even help you set up any excursions that you may be interested in, and the hostel will even take care of your laundry and dry cleaning needs. But there is a part of the hostel that workers try to keep under wraps, and that is the fact that it is also known as a tourist death trap, taking the lives of at least 6 tourists that we know of. In November of 2024, 19-year-old Holly Bowles and her best friend, 19-year-old Bianca Jones from Australia, 28-year-old lawyer Simone White from the United Kingdom, who traveled to Laos with her best friend Bethany Clark, 2 tourists from Denmark, 20-year-old Anne Safi and her best friend, 21-year-old Fryer, along with 1 unknown traveler from the United States, were 6 of the tourists who went to Vang Vieng for the trip of a lifetime and never returned home. The other thing these 6 people had in common was that they were all staying at Nana Backpackers Hostel. Holly and Bianca had been best friends their entire lives. The beginning of the trip started off great for all of the backpackers. They had an amazing few days soaking up all the fun activities that Laos is known for, including tubing down the river, riding dune buggies, and visiting the elephant sanctuary. Best friends in the prime of their lives, having a fantastic, carefree time with no idea of the horror that was awaiting them. A horror that never had to happen, a careless act at the hands of the staff that would destroy an uncountable number of lives. A horror that would link 3 sets of strangers together forever due to heartbreaking reasons. So, after their excursions were done for the day, everybody goes back to the hostel to shower and get ready for a night of hanging out, partying, and getting to know the other tourists at the hostel. A hostel that is known for handing out free shots of whiskey and vodka to their guests as a way of pre-gaming for the evening. That night, November 12th, 2024, the hostel handed out 100 of them. But what started as an innocent night of partying took a deadly turn by early morning. Simone and Bethany woke up feeling incredibly sick, nausea, fatigue, vomiting, and even fainting. Both girls were taken to the hospital where Simone's condition began to worsen. Bethany was actually forced to call Simone's mother to tell her that she needed to give her consent over the phone for Simone to undergo emergency brain surgery. While all of this is going on, Simone's mother immediately hops on a flight to Laos, arriving just before her daughter went into surgery. Following the surgery, Simone was placed on life support for 3 whole days. Doctors telling her mother that because of religious beliefs, so after the 3 days is up, she's still not getting any better, okay? So doctors tell mom that because of religious beliefs that they're unable to unplug Simone's breathing machine, and then tell mom that she have to do it herself. Could you imagine? But wait, it gets worse than that. 3 days later, not only did Simone's mother have to unplug her ventilator, but she was also forced to remove the tube from her daughter's mouth. And it was then at that point that Simone would tragically pass away. Simone White's family said in a statement, "She had the most wonderful energy and spark for life. She has been taken from us too soon. She will be sorely missed by her brother, grandmother, and entire family." But while both girls drank the exact same amount of alcohol that night, Bethany thankfully survived the ordeal while her best friend Simone did not. Okay, what exactly happened to these 6 tourists? The drinks that they were given that night had been mixed with methanol, not to be confused with ethanol, which is what is in regular alcohol, okay? What is methanol exactly? Methanol is used in industrial and household applications such as antifreeze and paint thinner, but it is also sometimes used at certain bars as a cheap alternative to liquor. This usually happens in poorer countries where there is very little regulation from the Food and Drug Administration and where homemaking of alcohol is more common than other countries. It is believed that in these countries, hundreds of residents die every year from methanol poisoning, but they never make the news. It's sadly only when a tourist dies that kind of information is brought to light, or in this case, 6 tourists die. The initial stages of methanol poisoning can feel like being drunk. People may experience pain, vomiting, and even hallucinations. The real problem with methanol is that if you smell it, it smells very similar to alcohol. It's very scary to know that there's no obvious way to detect it prior to consuming it. It looks, tastes, and smells just like alcohol. As a trained food laboratory analyst, my immediate assessment when this story first broke online was that the cause was alcohol poisoning, more specifically methanol contamination, and that the source of poisoning was local, not at the point of production. This suspicion has now been reinforced by 60 Minutes Australia investigation, particularly through Bethany's account where she reveals she consumed a similar number of shots as the victims but survived, suggesting she was exposed to a lower concentration of methanol. In my professional opinion, it is highly probable that the Tiger vodka and Tiger whiskey, product of Lao bottles, were illicitly topped up at the bar rather than being contaminated during manufacturing. Since methanol is lighter than whiskey, and if the bottles were not properly mixed after being tampered with, it is very likely that the methanol remained closer to the top of the bottle for some time. This would mean that guests who drank first received a far higher dose of methanol, while others, like Bethany, who drank later, may have consumed a lower concentration. Furthermore, the fact that both vodka and whiskey bottles appear to have been tampered with makes it overwhelmingly clear that this was no accident. This was a deliberate and reckless act committed for financial gain, leading to tragic and entirely preventable deaths. It constitutes an appalling crime that demands full accountability.
The real problem with methanol is that it is quite insidious. I mean, if you actually smell methanol, it smells very similar to ordinary alcohol, ethanol.
Is there an antidote?
Well, I mean, it is possible if you are, if medical attention gets to you quickly, it is possible to save people, provided they haven't drunk too much and provided it's happened very quickly. Typically, what this involves as a first step is actually giving people more of real alcohol, essentially to swamp the enzyme to make sure that there is enough time for the poisonous version, methanol, to be eliminated in the kidneys.
19-year-old best friends Holly and Bianca, along with best friends Anne and Fryer, would also pass away from the poisoning. A clinical toxicologist from New South Wales warns that methanol is invisible and tasteless. The smallest amounts will blind you. A single serve in a cocktail is most likely deadly. My friend died of methanol poisoning in Bali 2 years ago after drinking homemade limoncello. She was engaged to be married, and I miss her every day. An Indonesian here. Unfortunately, methanol poisoning is not uncommon. My advice, stick to bottled beer that you open yourself or see being opened in front of you. Avoid spirits as they can sometimes be mixed with unsafe substances for profit. There's a reason why Bintang beer is the preferred choice among many visitors. Safety is one of them. It is bottled, therefore less risk of being mixed beforehand by bar operators. Meanwhile, it was other backpackers that were helping the girls and bringing them to the hospital by taxi. The hostel didn't even help these girls or call for an ambulance for them. Police General Fatanwang Champhan said, for the foreigner in question, Bianca Jones, we know that she is an Australian national. She was picked up by the Bangkok Yudin Hospital from Seyseltha Hospital in Laos on November 13th. She arrived at the Bangkok Hospital at around 8 p.m. She was unconscious ever since she was picked up from Laos and never regained consciousness from then, even as she had received medical care. She died today, November 21st, 2024 at 9:36 a.m. The physician who did the initial examination on her said methanol was found in her body. It's poison and cannot be consumed. The cause of death is likely from the consumption of methanol from fake liquor. It's poison and cannot be consumed. It causes swelling of the brain and caused the death. Doctors told Bianca's parents that her brain was beginning to swell, and as the days went on, the swelling only got increasingly worse. It was at that point that Bianca's parents had to make the devastating choice to turn off her life support, and Bianca passed away in her mother's arms. The following day, November 22nd, 2024, her best friend, Holly Bowles, also passed away in the hospital with her parents at her side. 13 years ago, when I was 21, I stayed at the same hostel. The entire area was pretty wild. Lots of partying, alcohol, and drugs too. Many injuries from tubing in the river, some of them pretty reckless. I'm so sorry that this happened. It makes me so angry. These poor girls and their families. It's criminal. Chemist here. Ethanol counteracts methanol. If you suspect methanol poisoning, drink the highest proof liquor you can get your hands on as fast as you can and get to the ER as quickly as possible. For the parents of Anne and Fryer, they were not as fortunate as other parents, and they were not given the opportunity to say goodbye to their babies. In fact, authorities did not deem it necessary to even inform their parents about what had happened. They learned from a fellow backpacker that the girls were in trouble 3 days after they had already passed away. It was the Danish police that gave the news to the parents. The families were actually never given any reason as to why they weren't contacted, even though their belongings had been sitting in a police station when the families arrived in Laos. Some are from third world country here. I would advise tourists to be careful when they are on vacation. Find out any information you can about where you are going, including being security conscious of what you consume. I can guarantee you most third world countries don't care, and there's a lot of corruption and cover-ups. You may never get justice. I feel terribly sad for these parents. May their girls' souls rest in peace, and may these parents and their loved ones of the departed find comfort. Following the 6 deaths, police detained the hostel's manager and several staff members, including the bartender, for serving contaminated alcohol, to which they denied these claims. Hi guys, so while I was editing this video, I stumbled across this story and I just had to add it. This is Ashley King, who is a Mexican-Canadian playwright. Back in August of 2011, when Ashley was just 18 years old, she traveled to Bali with a friend of hers, a trip for the two to enjoy before the start of their college career. From the second Ashley touched down in Bali, nothing was going good for her. She experienced pickpocketing, bed bugs, rashes, and sickness from the food. But that was just the beginning of the bad luck that Ashley was about to encounter. On the last night of her trip, Ashley and her friends decide to go out for some drinks. Ashley orders a cocktail, okay? And the cocktail is served in a, she describes it as a plastic water bottle. And she says that it's advertised as perfect for spill-free dancing. The evening goes off without a hitch, and there's really nothing that feels off to Ashley about the drink or the way that it made her feel. You drink alcohol, you feel tipsy. pretty much we know that they go hand in hand. So this makes perfect sense, as methanol has the same effects as alcohol does until it doesn't. Once your body begins to metabolize the methanol, that's when it becomes dangerous. When your body metabolizes it, it turns the methanol into an acid, and your blood embalms you from the inside out, turning your blood completely acidic and traveling to all of your organs. So, the following day, Ashley boards a flight to New Zealand. Around 6 p.m. that following day, she begins to feel off. When she decided to go to sleep that evening, she remembered that she had left her nightlight on in the room. The following morning, when she woke up, she sees that the light is off. So she originally thinks that it's weird that somebody would just come in and shut off her light, but for the most part, she shrugs it off. She gets up, she walks into the bathroom, and she notices that the light in the bathroom is very dim. She shrugs that off as well, assuming that she had simply picked a less than ideal hostel to stay in. It wasn't until she began gasping for air that the real fear of the situation began to kick in. So she goes down to the front desk, and when the receptionist sees the severity of the situation, she's taken to the hospital. They go up to the room. The receptionist goes up to the room to get her passport and her license, the things that you obviously need if you're taking a trip to the ER. Ashley's bag at the time had bright colored stripes on it, but when she looked down at it, it was no longer as bright as she remembered. That's when it clicked for her that none of these things were situational. There was definitely something wrong with Ashley's eyes. By the time she reached the hospital, she was almost completely blind and still gasping for air. Doctors assumed that Ashley had consumed drugs. And going back to the story of Simone White, her best friend also says that the doctors in the hospital in Laos originally assumed that the girls were drug addicts. Ashley assures the doctor that she is not a drug user. After running a bunch of tests, doctors come back and they ask Ashley if she knows why there's a large amount of methanol in her bloodstream. Just as I said before, the best way to negate the effects of methanol is with ethanol, which is what is supposed to be an alcohol. So, doctors begin giving Ashley the highest proof of alcohol that they could find and tell her to drink it as fast as possible, going on to say that they can't give it to her intravenously because it won't work fast enough. So she has to consume it by mouth, and she has to consume it quickly. Once she finished one drink, doctors would hand her another drink and tell her to drink it faster. She actually describes this experience as the most absurd drinking game she has ever played. But the drunker Ashley got, the better her breathing and her eyesight became. Ashley calls her family in Canada and tells them to get on the first flight to New Zealand, going on to tell them that she has been poisoned with methanol and she's not sure if she's going to make it or not. After being given dialysis, Ashley wakes up in the ICU. Thankfully, her breathing is back to normal at this point, but her vision is still very much off. She can no longer see color. She can only see shapes, and the color she sees in is described as sepia. Doctors told her that she's very lucky to be alive, which we know to be true at this point. When she asked about her vision, doctors gave her the heartbreaking news that this is most likely how her eyesight would remain. Ashley's doctors told her that her optic nerves were dying. Okay. While the very acidic blood makes its way through your body, it travels to your brain and into your optic nerves. In layman's terms, Ashley's eyes are perfectly fine. It's the connection from the eyes to the brain that is broken. Ashley wholeheartedly believes that if she had been hospitalized in Bali, she would not be here today to tell her story, believing that the doctors in Bali would not have taken the proper steps to save her life. But Ashley's journey was just beginning. On top of battling major bouts of depression from feeling like she would never be able to make it to university or be able to walk down the aisle or drive a car, she also had to relearn life with her new reality. To her credit, she didn't let this stop her like most of us would have, like I think I might have. She did attend university, she did put herself back into the dating scene, and she did eventually go on another backpacking trip. She studied abroad, she traveled to India, South America, and even lived in England. But maybe most notably, she took her new reality and turned it into a play. In September of 2024, Static, a party girl's memoir, made its debut to sold-out audiences, and it went on to earn several awards that ended up leading to a very successful podcast for her. I grew up in Cameron. There are a lot of street vendors selling homemade alcohols and such. My father always told me not to drink them because they could make you sick and even blind. I never understood why until I learned about alcohols in organic chemistry. That's like murdering someone for a couple bucks. It makes me so angry. That poor baby. It's good that she could cope with her blindness, but it's so dang cruel. Thank you for speaking out. I'm a U.S. psychologist and can say the issue is more widespread than people are aware of. I've encountered college kids, functional but low SES alcoholics, who start drinking things like mouthwash because it's cheaper and can be accessed by underage people. They know it will get them drunk, but have no idea of the risk and don't understand the difference between ethanol and methanol. Explaining the risks has thankfully been a wake-up call every time I've had this conversation. That's sad. I specifically don't work in addictions. These have been patients that I was seeing something else. This is how dangerously common this problem is. The fact that she eventually chose to embrace her new life instead of sulking and feeling sorry for herself because she's considered disabled now is truly inspiring.
They were offering free whiskey and vodka shots, and so I was kind of getting them to pour the vodka into a cup, and I was mixing it with like soft drinks. And in terms of when I thought something might be wrong, I mean, not really until the next day, I would say, is that's when I started to notice that something might be wrong. I remember like having this sort of like kaleidoscopic, blinding light in my eyes, and to the point at which I couldn't see anything. And I said to my friends, you know, that I don't remember the exact conversation we had, but it was strange, but we thought, you know, it was probably food poisoning. And I remember we were sitting in our hotel room, my friends and I said to them, you know, why are we sitting in the dark? Someone should turn a light on. And they said to me, you know, there is a light on in here. And once I got back to England, in the hospital there, that's when I think they said, oh, they heard cases of poisoning at this particular hostel. And I actually found out that 2 girls that we'd been out with on that evening had died.
I urge you guys to educate yourselves about methanol poisoning and to be vigilant when traveling abroad. Truth be told, prior to stumbling across this story, I was unaware that this even existed, but it absolutely does, and it is still very much happening to this day. The hostel was temporarily closed, but as of August 2025 has reopened its doors under the new name Vang Vieng Central Backpacker Hostel. And to that I say, you can dress up a pig however you'd like, but it's still a pig. I will, however, leave you with this. If you are going to travel to these foreign countries, please, please, please make sure the drinks you are consuming are closed and absolutely never accept free drinks from anyone. If you guys are still here, thank you, thank you, thank you. I love you and I appreciate you so, so, so very much. Please like, subscribe, and comment if you haven't yet and you feel so inclined to, because it really helps me out and I really, really appreciate it. And until next time, stay safe out there.